When I was 13, my family and I took a trip to America to visit some close friends. Genuinely one of the best trips of my life. We went all across California, dipped into Nevada. America is actually a beautiful place as long as you ignore like 95% of the people living there. My audience is majority American, I can't make that joke. I saw the Golden Gate Bridge, the Hollywood sign, Lake Tahoe, drove through Death Valley, all super interesting experiences, but there was one stop that stuck with me. It wasn't a destination I was particularly excited about, not one I've hyped myself up for. In fact, I was kinda dreading walking around the desert for hours on end. They weren't lying, patrolling the Mojave does make you wish for a nuclear winter. But this visit did something to me. Just east of the Sierra Nevada and south of Lake Tahoe, you'll find Bodie, a town stuck in time. It was founded in 1876 by a group of prospectors named after their friend, W.S. Bodie, who died but was originally part of the company that discovered gold in the area just 17 years prior. By 79, upwards of 10,000 people lived there, producing $3 million worth of gold and other ores. Bodie, California was the pinnacle of a boomtown. It held 65 saloons, making its main streets stretch for miles, a red light district, and even a Taoist temple. If you wanted to mine some gold, duel against a ranger, and live out that American dream, you'd be hard-pressed to find somewhere better than Bodie. But by the turn of the century, it all came crashing down. By 1890, the population had decreased by 90% just 10 years after its peak. The gold had run dry, families packed up and moved, prospectors looked elsewhere, and the city of Bodie had been left deserted. By the time I visited, it was a shell of its former self. Only 110 buildings are left standing due to fires and harsh weathers. The buildings you can see are run down. Cutlery is still left on tables, furniture is still set up as if people are living there, and nature has begun to claim what's left. I have this one memory of sweltering under the Californian sun, looking up at the hangman's tree, morbid name I know, and really taking in where I was. The people that had lived there, the history, all gone, wiped away almost as quickly as it started. Now when I recall this memory, I can't stop thinking about Homestuck. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that I was a Homestuck OG. When Homestuck first released, I was about 3 years old, and I only began reading Homestuck relatively recently, around October time 2023. It's fair to say that I am very late to this party. Late is probably the wrong word. I missed this party entirely. Also, hi, I'm on camera. This is my second year uni house. I get a £250 fine if I put anything on the walls, which is why it's so drab and depressing, and also the lighting in here is awful. If I did this in the daytime, you would see like God coming through this window. And also the grey fucked up. I think I put it on too runny. I was gonna wear the horns I have, but they're not very good. They're like handmade and I'm not a cosplayer. This is what I've got. I don't know if I'll keep them on. Oh, I just kicked my entire desk. But they don't really stay on. They're kinda shit, I'll be honest with you. There we are. You know what, I'll keep them on. Why the fuck not? It is fall 13, or whenever this video gets out. Looking at the Homestuck fandom now, it feels like I'm walking through Bodie again. Also, side tangent, I wrote this segment and then went to get lunch. I like to watch videos when I eat because I'm a child of the 21st century. I clicked on a brief history of Homestuck by Sarah Z, which is a really good video, but at the 1 minute 18 seconds mark, she also makes the comparison to a ghost town. Just know, I made this comparison before I watched that video, and I'm not just ripping her off for fun. Also, side tangent, this is one of those videos where I try and like describe a feeling that I have, so it might be really disjointed and not super tight as some of my other videos are, but I hope you enjoy. My first experience with this emotion was after my first Fall 13, this time last year. I went down to Brighton and I cosplayed with some friends, which we're gonna do again. We went clubbing and I smoked a bunch of cigarettes dressed as Terezi Pyro. At first I attributed this to post-con depression, a term coined by the cosplay community to describe that inexplicable depression you get after a con. You know, you build up all this hype, you make your cosplays, you see other cosplayers, I've never actually been to a con. I don't know what happens there. You buy things, I think, and then it's over in just a couple hours. You're done. You go back to your 9 to 5 or school. But this is something much deeper and much more directly correlated to Homestuck. I was thinking about the characters and the story and how everyone's all dead and all the shit I have missed, like, I don't know, spinning the Faygo or like taking a Sharpie bath. For something so big to just come crashing down, it's almost too existential. I don't think I can handle it. I think the only frame of reference I have for the size of Homestuck is something like the Dream SMP, but even then, it's not a super apt comparison. Run times differ wildly. The Dream SMP only ran for about 2 years, whereas Homestuck lasted the best part of a decade, and technically is still running. While time may prove me wrong, I feel that Homestuck has much more longevity. The DSMP came out in a world that had such fast-paced media consumption, so it had a lot less time in the spotlight compared to something like Homestuck, as well as having less controversy since in Homestuck the groomers are all fictional. Also in the early 2010s, online culture hadn't really entropied into itself as it has today. Since we now get all our news from the same 3 apps, we're all aware of the different corners of the internet. I had this realization on the train to college. I was talking to my very offline friend. He's into like gym and finance or stocks. I don't really know what it is. But he asked me what Dream Not Found was, and that blew my mind open. Everybody kind of knows everything that's happening, no matter how far removed they are. I would argue that this mesh of online culture drove the Dream SMP to the heights that it did, and also everyone was stuck inside for like 2 years straight. While Homestuck had this reach because of a crazed fan base, rather than it was because of this algorithm-led drag of culture we now have. I still see people with like troll avatars lurking in comments of random YouTube videos where you don't really see that with the Dream SMP anymore. And so I'm kind of just left with this massive pivotal fan base that I don't really have a reference for, and it's just been lost to time. All I see are remnants. There's a poem by Percy Shelley, the husband of Mary Shelley, called Ozymandias, which kind of captures this feeling. Yeah, I know it's the Breaking Bad poem, but stick with me here. I'll read you my favourite parts, and by favourite I mean the ones most relevant to the script. I met a traveller from an antique land who said, "2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read. And on the pedestal these words appear, my name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look upon my works, ye mighty in despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away." If you didn't take English GCSE or you weren't paying attention, the poem is describing a statue of Ramses II, a former pharaoh of Egypt. Some guy showed up and he's telling the protagonist of the poem, or the narrator, how vast and powerful the Egyptian empire used to be. Now it's just reduced to a broken statue. That's the 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone. Time is the killer of all things. Not to get all existential on you, but the period we call ancient Egypt lasted 3,000 years. Our modern capitalist world has lasted only around 200. We are closer in time to the life of Cleopatra than Cleopatra was to the construction of the pyramids. Ancient Egypt was a titan of civilization, but now it's just viewed as a stepping stone in the larger progress of humanity. One that we've just titled Ancient Egypt. I don't know if I'm making much sense here, but in my head I am. No matter how big we build or how vast we stretch, time erases us all. Same with Homestuck. Time has passed and we're seeing the empire crumble, to the point that a lot of fandom lore feels like mythos. I hear of these legends that were once, living large, and now complete radio silence. I mean, like, what the fuck is Broadway Carcat doing? Working a 9 to 5? Does anyone know what happened to Broadway Carcat? Can you go from writing Strider Be Mine to just filling out taxes? Or looking at photos from old cons where you're just staring into a sea of grey? It feels so distant and inconceivable now. I think this is where a lot of the indescribable sadness comes from. The feeling that something so big, much bigger than oneself, can pretty much disappear in a matter of years. It makes you question, how long will you stick around after you're gone? The ghost town in this scenario is the internet. Shit sticks around for so long. You can still go onto Tumblr and see people's decade-old Homestuck opinions, defunct pages or blogs people ran, and pictures on the Google Image tab of people who've long grown out of their Homestuck phase. There's a picture of a Vriska cosplayer on the Wikipedia for, I think it's Homestuck characters. Like, you could have left your Homestuck phase years ago, but Wikipedia has like archived it as you being Vriska, and that's probably the image that most people will see you by. It still exists, you can still visit the community. The people are just gone. This isn't to say that there isn't a community. It's much smaller, but it's still somewhat thriving. It just feels a lot like that one tweet. It's some animated show, and the OP is like, I never noticed she was holding corn in this scene, and it got quote tweeted with, "You people are running out of things to talk about." I think I can't handle things ending, and I think Homestuck exemplifies this. Ending is good. Things having a good ending, or an ending in sight, is good. You don't want to run on for like 1,000 episodes like some animes do, and you just sort of lose what was good about the show in the first place, or the book series or webcomic. And this isn't even because it's media I like that's ending. I think it's just the concept of things ending in general that I cannot handle. If you're unaware, last summer the UK had an election where Labour, the centre-right party, won by a landslide, ousting the Conservative or Tory party, who'd been in control for the last decade and a half. This meant a bunch of politicians lost their constituency and their seat in Parliament. I remember watching Penny Mordaunt, Jacob Rees-Mogg and like Liz Truss walking out of Parliament with their briefcases looking all sad. And don't get me wrong, good fucking riddance. I hate these people and they would probably hate me. But I was a little bit sad just to see that this epoch of life was ending. It's over, but like, thank fucking God. I don't know if there's a positive spin I can chuck on this video, which is really depressing because I really like Homestuck and I'll definitely do something next year. But you know what, there will be a positive spin in this regard? The Outer Wilds video, which is coming out at some point. I just didn't want to have the same conclusion for 2 videos, so maybe view this as a prelude. I've got you all depressed, and now I'm gonna sell you the medicine. Sorry this is so short and kinda shittily put together. Uni has been hell. I've had 4 essays due in this week. They're due in tomorrow, and I'm still not done. I'm recording this video dressed as fucking Terezi Pyrope. So if you have enjoyed, please consider subscribing. I hate to ask, and I usually don't, but the people are saying 10k 2025, and who am I to deny them that? I've been Unijoy, and you have been